I have an old friend on Steve Bratic. Gosh, I've known Steve for a number of years. He's done a number of projects. He's a LED lighting guy. He was in the cannabis community for a long time, helping those folks. And now he's got this idea, this project that he's developing and shopping all around the country that uses these natural gas powered charging pods that are also mobile, so that they can be set up anywhere. Right, Steve?
Absolutely. Yeah, we can put them in, we can put them into mobile systems. We can set it up in a different type of manner that allows for,
Oh, there we
all right.
go.
Matt, how are you doing?
Good now. Just fine.
Good.
Sounds out of breath. He was out jogging around campus, and now he had to come in. So
That's all right. It's good exercise. So thank you for letting me get on here, Mike, and talk about my new company, EVcharging Pod, which is a full service solution provider for on-grid and off-grid EV charging. This is our website, EVchargingpod.energy, or you can go to EVcp.energy. And the different products that we're actually representing are EV charging stations, battery systems, solar, and generators. So under the EV charging, which is really key here, is we have a variety of different products from our media towers, which is a really fast payback, less than 1 year. We can have any of the level 2 chargers, which are the AC chargers, the 32 amp, the 48, or the 80 amp that we can mount on the side of the media tower, which is a 55-inch Samsung television screen. Great for marketing. And then we've got our level 3 chargers, 30 kilowatts, that is ground mounted on wheels for repair shops, wall mounted. Our 60 kilowatt DC fast charge, dual port, so it's got load balancing, so it'd be 30 plus 30. And then we have our 90 kilowatt, same thing, where the power is split, 120 kilowatt, 150, and then our 180 are also split, but they are future proofed so that you can actually add a 30 kilowatt module. Instead of buying the 150 or the 180, you can just add the module to the 120. So down the road, you can get more power. So we can go to 150 and 180 with very minimal work to be done. And then the last one is our DC 360 kilowatt system, where even though the chargers are still fan cooled, but the center module is actually liquid cooled because there's so much power going through that cabinet. So
now, one of the things that's cropped up that I'm sure that you've heard about is Tesla, of course, has gazillion chargers, something like, what is it, 60, 80,000 around the country. But now Ford and GM are going to go to their connector. So I'm sure that you can have some adapter. I don't know how yours is set up, but
yep. No, once we know what vehicle you have, then we can set you up and get an adapter. You would preload the software, so you would have money allocated in the account, but ultimately that would then kick us off. Then once you do that, we would then ship you an adapter once we know what type of vehicle you have. And then of course is it going to be a level 2 to a level 3 CCS, or is it going to be a Tesla to CCS or vice versa? So those little things that we need to know. But once you sign up to our program, then we can go ahead and send that to your establishment.
Okay, so what kind of charging times are we talking about for the typical EV with these various levels of power that you're offering?
Oh, that's a good question. So let me go to another chart here so I can look at my pricing sheet. Actually has that information on there. So our level 2 chargers, pricing, there it is. Yeah, I had to pull up the right one here.
Well, that's okay.
So that's actually a really good question, and people don't realize it, but ultimately the 32 amp can give you up to 28 miles per hour. So if you're charging per hour, it's 28 miles per hour. The
That's
48
an interesting way to look at it.
right, right.
Yeah.
Well, because you're charging based on time, right? So
Right.
your 48 amp is going to give you about 40 miles per hour. Your 80 amp is going to be 50 plus. I've seen in some cases that the 80 amp could give you, depending on it, and a lot of it varies based on the vehicle type, the battery type, and the technology in that vehicle. So the more you spend on a car, the faster and easier it is to charge as well.
Sure.
The 30 kilowatt charger is 120 miles per hour. The 60 is 160. The 90 is 180. The 120 is 200. 150 is 220. And then the 180 is 240 per hour. So yeah, it is definitely an interesting way to monopolize on and describing, how far can you go with the charge?
Sure, absolutely. The other thing I was wondering about is that you market these, from what Mike has told me beforehand, as powering these with a natural gas powered generator. Talk about that a little bit, as opposed to, I've seen, most other chargers, of course, are hooked to the electrical grid.
That's right.
This I would think would give you some flexibility as to siting, and also as to how big you can put a charger in what location.
Yeah.
Because there's natural gas lines everywhere, and even in remote locations you could always have a great big propane tank, I would imagine.
Absolutely. So that's the great thing, is if there isn't natural gas in remote areas, we can definitely use propane. But yeah, we can do 3-phase power, which is a fast charge. And that's the great part of it, is we've been talking to municipalities, private companies, fleet organizations, especially because they're heavy users. Basically, they're struggling. Even our competitors, our other EV charging competitors that are out there, they're coming to us because we can provide them with power where they can add a fast charger, and they couldn't before even sell a project because there was not enough power on the grid.
Interesting.
And
So like
we
in West
actually,
Michigan,
I plugged Steve into Army, the Detroit Arsenal tar deck, whatever it's called these days. I know they changed the name. They were looking at
GVSC,
it.
yes.
Yeah, they were looking at it because the troop transports they want to move forward on wouldn't be for tanks or any heavy equipment, or be trucks. But
right.
but we found out, and I think this is not a good call on the Army's part, is they have one standard fuel, which is almost like jet fuel, right, Steve?
Yeah, it is jet fuel.
And that would burn up Steve's generators, And the other thing is it's really, really dirty. So I'm hoping they reevaluate that stance, right, Steve?
Yeah, hopefully they will. And I think that they said that they'd be open to maybe down the road reconsidering some other options, where maybe you have a natural gas or propane system back in the field, and then be able to then mobilize battery solutions, which is another option that we can offer as well.
Matt?
So how did you get into this business? What's your background in the mobility industry?
So my background is in electronics. So I started in the LED world, and then that ultimately progressed into the cannabis industry. And then I got into power generation. And with COVID, I basically, reinvented myself because of the market, tanking in the cannabis industry, and realizing that there was a growth area that had a high demand of power. And that's when I got into EV charging. I'm like, wow, okay, so you've got all these great opportunities for selling electric cars, but there's not enough power on the grid to support the demand. And so that's where I already was selling power for many other industries, automotive industry, manufacturing in general, the horticultural, agricultural, the cannabis industry. But what ended up happening is that's when I thought about this whole EV charging. There's so much going on. Like in West Michigan, the state parks were donated by Rivian electric vehicle charging stations. But because they don't have 3-phase power, they only donated level 2 chargers, which isn't a bad thing. But the problem is who wants to sit at a park, for hours in a day to charge your vehicle? You want to get in and get out for that type of stuff.
Yep. Absolutely. And So yeah, that's the limitation on you need three-phase power. And I know actually we've run into that at Lawrence Tech where we wanted to put in like heavy industrial equipment to model an Industry 4.0 laboratory, and we had to jump through all sorts of hoops to go from the two-phase power that you get in a normal classroom to a three-phase
Right.
power that you'd seen in an industrial setting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what we've been doing. Is we've been generating power, three-phase power, for many different industries. So why not apply it towards an area that is in high demand and high need for three-phase power for electric vehicle charging?
Yeah, I was at the Toyota event, was it last week, I think, or maybe the week before, where they were introducing the new lab that's going to be used to validate batteries and that sort of thing. And the governor was there, and I put that question to her. It just said, you want to plug 1 million cars into the grid. We cover the grid, and we're already, ITC and DTE and consumers are all telling us they're just barely able to keep up with demand now. So how are you going to do that? And
Well, it's
so,
interesting. One of my customers, and I can't disclose who it is, but it's a very large national company selling groceries. But with that being said,
and do they have
Based
a Dutch name or not?
Based in Cincinnati, maybe? I don't
Yeah,
know.
right. Yeah,
something
that's what I
like
was
that.
thinking.
But they ended up coming to us. We had our booth at the DTE Energy Fair in Novi, and they came to us and said, "Hey, the local energy company is saying that we don't have enough power to support your demand request for EV charging until 2029 at least."
Oh, geez.
Oh my God, yeah.
So
Yeah, that
this
is the Achilles heel. And I live in a complex with 600 units, and we have 2 Tesla charging stations. That's it for 600 units. How many cars and people is that, right?
But how many brownouts and blackouts have you had too?
Yeah, I told you I lost power for 7 days during those 2 storms.
Right, and just
Yeah.
recently too, didn't you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's just there's a lot of issues. But
This is an interesting one that I can tell you about. My the Better Health Market, where my wife's like the deli counter manager, is experienced a brownout last week, and then they went the next day to use the gas stove and oven, and they couldn't because the brownout had fried the electronic brain of the gas stove and oven.
Oh my gosh! Yes.
So yeah, so
hopefully
even
you
a
had
gas
good
appliance
insurance,
is
right?
yeah, even a gas appliance is susceptible to problems with the grid.
Well, and that's the thing is looking at how we do things. When we're generating power, we're using batteries. The batteries can be used to absorb the surges, right? So then you're not going to damage all your other equipment as well. And
Right.
the nice thing is we've even come up with some ideas on doing transfer switches. So if the grid goes out, one of 2 things we can do. We can either work with the local utility and backfeed the grid and we call it distributed power, or we can then do a transfer switch and we now back up as prime power to the facility that the chargers are tied to. You wouldn't know the difference because these 4 fast chargers is 600 kilowatts. Plus, you've got a conversion from AC to DC that add another 30%, you're at 780. I mean, I can power a small town with that.